September 17th is one of the most important dates of our nation's history for many reasons. September 17th, 1787, 39 men came together and signed the Constitution of these United States of America, making us that shining city on a hill, ensuring that we would be and will be and always will be the greatest nation to sit upon God's great earth. However, I would be remiss on September 17th if I didn't also mention another important date and historic anniversary that today also signifies. You know, 225 years ago today, 39 men signed the Constitution. 150 years ago today signifies the anniversary of the Battle of Antietam in Sharpsburg, Maryland. The bloodiest single day of our Civil War. 23,000 casualties, 100,000 soldiers all met at the Creek of Antietam in Maryland that day. All fighting for what we knew was the greatest nation on earth, but fighting for two very different visions of what this nation would become and what road this nation would travel into the future. It was only a few days after that battle that Republican President Abraham Lincoln saw the victory as just enough to begin constructing the Emancipation Proclamation, one of the most important documents in our nation's history. With the stroke of his pen, President Lincoln gave freedom, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to over 50,000 enslaved Americans across the land. A mark that shouldn't be buried in the history books, but should be proclaimed as the important historic day that it is. You know, September 17th is an important day for many reasons. Set aside the day before my birthday, but that's just a different celebration. 225 years ago today, our nation sat at a crossroads at the signing of our Constitution. 150 years ago today, our nation sat at a crossroads of defining what path and what course our nation would set sail upon. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that today, on September 17th, 2012, we stand at yet another crossroads in our nation's history. You know, it was just a few weeks ago in Charlotte at the Democratic National Convention where our president spoke about how the two choices this year have never been so clear. And he nailed it. The two choices this year have never been so clear. You know, the world today is much different than the world we were promised just a few short years ago. Our national debt has topped $16 trillion. Gas, $4 a gallon. Milk, even more expensive than that. There are 400,000 North Carolinians out of work. 53% of recent college graduates, that's you. 1.5 million college graduates 25 years or younger, unemployed or underemployed. And if you've turned on the news in the last week, you know nations across the world don't look at us any differently than they did just a few years ago. Yet we have a leader that whispers into the Prime Minister of Russia's ear, just give me more time. I'll have more flexibility once I'm re-elected. We have leadership that promotes the American dream and those who have achieved it as villains, not as something for our youth to aspire to, and not as a goal for our future generations. A lot of the touts, you didn't build it. Somebody else made that happen. Insinuating that government is more important than hard work and dedication and risk. But it's not just about a leader. It's not just about a person. It's not just about an elected official. It's about a movement. There's a movement in America today. When in Charlotte just a couple of weeks ago, you had one of the two major political parties in this nation vote 3 times to remove our God Almighty in Jerusalem from the party platform, the document that defines what one of the two major political parties stands for. And at the beginning of that convention, stating that the one thing we all belong to is government. Y'all, when 32 cents out of every dollar that I make goes to support an obtrusive government's wasteful spending, most of which I don't support in the first place, I don't belong to government. Government belongs to me. Government belongs to you. Government belongs to the we the people that those 39 men stood for 225 years ago today. We stand at a crossroads. Are we going to continue down the path of economic policies that promote food stamps over paychecks? Are we going to continue on the path of a foreign policy that promotes apologizing and appeasing our enemies rather than justice and freedom for our closest allies? Are we going to continue down a path where our Constitution is nothing more than a speed bump in the way of government and politicians, taking away our God-given rights as Americans, one by one, slowly but surely? Well, I don't want to. And I don't think you do either. And on November 6th, as stated in that document that was signed 225 years ago, we can do something about it. I'm going to vote. And I would highly recommend you voting too. I'm going to vote to end the eroding of our Constitution and the growth of an obtrusive government that reaches everywhere it can, especially into your wallets. I'm going to vote for candidates that understand that you can't crucify job creators and then scratch your head when unemployment numbers rise. I'm going to vote for a candidate that understands that if we don't get our national deficit under control today, one of two people are going to own it in our future. Our children or China. And I'm going to vote for candidates that will never apologize for free speech or bow to Middle Eastern kings. But candidates who are going to defend and stand up for our faith, our freedom, our flag, and everything that makes this nation a shining city on a hill. You know, as President Ronald Reagan had stated, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Ladies and gentlemen, we found ourselves at a crossroads. It's time for us to fight for and protect our freedom, our justice, and the liberty that was set forth 225 years ago by those 39 men that signed the Constitution, and by those 100,000 soldiers that fought for a future where we were all created equal under one God. On November 6th, when you get behind that curtain, you have to ask yourself, what future do I want 4 years from now, 40 years from now, 400 years from now, and what do I want this flag to represent? And then you mark that box. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you having me on this great day. It's a phenomenal day. Constitution Day, September 17th, signifies so much in our history. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Johnston Community College, for having me. May God bless you, and may God continue to watch over and bless our state and the United States.